and welcome to the Binge Thinker episode 63. My name is Jamil Raymond. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. As always, on this week's episode, we are continuing to part 6 of my tech sales course, my $30 million tech sales course, all for free for you, bingers, for the loyal listeners, and for the people on the internet who randomly find me thanks to the algorithm. Who knows? But on this episode, we're going to cover part 6, which is going to be about account management 101. This is where some of the rubber starts to really hit the road around some of the theories that we've been talking about in previous weeks. Things like the law of reciprocation or law of reciprocity, the trust formula, servicing is selling. A lot of these concepts all integrate into how you operate with customers day to day in your role as an account manager or as a salesperson. A lot of my previous history, a lot of my sales experience comes from being an account manager, looking after people, the relationships of customers, understanding their problems in depth, creating solutions with them, being a fantastic generalist of the organization to solve a customer's problems using technology. So with this, I'm basing myself off a lot of experience. This integrates a lot of sales and marketing. And a new concept that a concept that was the kernel around me building the technology sales course to begin with a couple of years ago now, a concept called the Account Concierge, which we'll get into in just a moment. So let's get started, shall we? So, account management. This is the core of the people person aspect of tech. We talked about in previous episodes, there's 2 types of people in tech. There's the tech people and there's the people people. The tech people being the engineers, the nerds, the people who want to build and manage the stuff and like to create the technology. And then there's the people people. People that sell the technology have to understand customers and people and organizations in depth and use the relational skills to create that transaction in a B2B or B2C world. Now we are focused on the B2B aspect at the moment and have been for the entirety of the course. And then if you look at previous episodes, you can understand the differences between those two and understand the mechanics of leverage that you have socially and societally with B2B and B2C, which there still is some more to dig into, which will about understanding people inside B2B tech sales, which we'll cover in later eps, of course. But account management, this is where the real differentiator is. We talked about, there's 2 types of people. The core of a sales team in B2B tech sales is the account manager and their solutions engineer or sales engineer or something engineer, right? So this is where you really are putting your people skills to the test. This is where all the theories we talk about really come together. So what is the role of an account manager? Now, the organizations will tell you that you're there to be the face of the brand. You are the front door of the tech company to the customer, which is very, very true, right? An account manager is who a customer should be thinking of when they think of an organization. So when customers are thinking Cisco, they should be thinking of me as the first point of contact if I'm the account manager, okay? When I was at Telstra, I used to tell customers the exact same thing. I'm the first point of contact of anything Telstra that you need to hear about. Any questions, queries, anything dumb, whatever it is, you come to me. That's already ingrained into customers behaviorally, particularly, again, experienced IT managers or whoever they are that have been, engaging with this exchange of sales for, 10, 20 years, whatever it is. But it's always nice to reinforce that with customers because just for the simple fact of you stating it, again, it creates this idea, this micro promise for you to keep and to build that association of you and the brand, which is important. Later on, actually, in this section, we'll talk about the difference between company brand and personal brand and why your personal brand is actually more important than the company's brand itself. So as the front door of the tech company, all right, you are the first point of contact, right? And how people get to your front door is primarily a marketing exercise, right? Marketing's primary responsibility in tech sales is to get people and customers to you to finish that last mile of engagement, communication, solutioning, sales, etc. Right? So the billions that companies spend on advertising, on ads and all that sort of shit. That is to get you thinking about how you and how they can have their problems solved. And then they come to you if you're the account manager and to basically take advantage of that and continue that conversation, right? Once the customers come to you as the front door of the organization, your primary responsibility is to be a relationship and an experience manager to the rest of your organization, right? And the customer experience part is extremely important. So in my previous lives, where I was also a customer experience specialist, a bit of a stretch project at my time in Telstra, we did a lot of research into what can generate more advocates, people that are, that look at Telstra favorably. And this does apply to any tech organization though, right? But in our research, we found that over 60% of the advocates, right, people that scored 8 and above on our survey on customer satisfaction, over 60% of the advocates had the account manager relationship as a key influencer in their score, right? So advocates were heavily based on the experience they had with the account manager, right? Because you are the front door to the experience. And if that front door is shaky or doesn't open properly, then how is someone going to get through the door, right? So based on this is where my first concept comes in as an account manager, where I'm introducing the account concierge here, right? So when I say an account concierge, that is the ideal positioning and framing that you want to be as an account manager. So what is the account concierge? So I took this concept from a hotel concierge, right? I can't remember the movie. It's something in the 90s. Maybe it was Home Alone 2 or something like that. But in general terms, the concierge of a hotel is the go-to guy. He's the person you go to when you want to know what's good in town, what's interesting, what services does the hotel offer, how can I make my time here more enjoyable, right? A concierge, if you're traveling into a city and you go to a hotel, the concierge knows where the good restaurants are, he knows what the fun things are to do around town, he knows all the secret spots, he knows what the locals likes. He knows how to make things a little bit more special for your experience, right? Maybe he knows, just those little tidbits, or maybe he can ask something of you that you might enjoy. Like you go, hey, maybe you like a little bit extra late checkout, or I've actually had your dry cleaning put up to your room already. Everything's been organized for you, right? They're that nice, meticulous character that helps smooth the experience and makes it as seamless and frictionless as possible. And this is something that we talked about in earlier episodes, where I talked about minimizing the friction in your sales process, right? Again, minimizing the objections, which there always going to be are, but if you're prepared, you can minimize those objections ahead of time by understanding what's going on. Minimizing the friction in the process, keeping the process as simple as possible from your customer to get from A to B in going through your solution, procuring it and enjoying it. And that, as a concierge, right, and that concierge experience applies into the pre-sales experience itself. So that means making sure that the servicing, the account management, the hygiene of the account is up to scratch and looking good. What do we mean by the hygiene of an account? There's no outstanding service issues, outstanding billing issues, any points of contention that minimize or degrade the perception of your organization by the customer. Okay, so we did talk about that previously, how servicing is selling. We're going to dig into that a little bit more today as well. And then in the course itself, we'll give you a good indicator of customer health, which is one of the key aspects of the CRM, or the soft CRM that I'm going to create for you guys in time, about understanding customer health, because it is very, very important to the customer experience. Okay, so what does being a hotel concierge have to do with being a great account manager? So as we said before, creating that seamless servicing experience, right? Being able to know, any contentious points within the account as an account manager. Maybe you can leverage previous experience of what customers might like to have that other customers don't know about. So for example, I used to be really good at billing issues in my time at Telstra. So I could really quickly, as an introductory meeting or whatnot, I could do an account review and I could get to know the customer really well about what they had before we even had our first meeting, because I could look at their bill and go, okay, I know this, this, and this about you. And that helps pre-set a conversation with a little bit of research and a little bit of understanding, and that develops trust and competency very quickly, right? In fact, one of the key concepts about being a great account manager and a great account concierge is something called a T-based skill set. Now, what a T-based skill set is essentially like, so I look at this from a marketing perspective, right? And the idea is to be a fantastic generalist, right? A T shape. So if you think about the top line of a T, it's broad, it's wide, right? So you get to be a fantastic generalist, and then the bottom part of the T, which goes straight down, which is a depth of knowledge in a particular field, right? So in account management, your T-shaped marketing or T-shaped skill set should be a broad understanding of business, of communication, of technology, of whatever else is going on, and that deep expertise is what you understand about the customer, okay? What are those things like? It could be industry insights, it could be operational processes, it could be the key stakeholders in the business that you weren't aware of. Are they more influential? Do you even know who they are? Something like strategic direction of the organization or future roadmaps. So once you get to know your customer and get to and build that trust and you break into that trusted network, that's how you develop that depth in the customer. Now, so you're not going to develop that immediately, but you can help that by doing your pre-research about a customer's account, understanding their industry, understanding trends that might be relevant to them, right? A lot of that, even just a little bit of insight into current macro trends, such as sustainability, such as cybersecurity, such as AI, again, immediately creates that value engagement, right? And exchanging that value with you as the account manager to the customer about, hey, this guy's useful, this guy's insightful, this guy gets what the problems are that I need to solve, or maybe he understands problems before I even know what they are as well. All of these things are opportunities to surprise and delight your customer and then create that leverage in the perception of who you are and valuable to them in the organization. Okay. So with this T-shaped marketing, or the T-shaped skill set, you might think, I want to know everything. But you can't, it's just too much. That's the reason why you listen to this course, or you've got this course in the first place, because it's too fucking overwhelming. The other parts that you might not know a lot about, i.e. being technical or understanding internal business processes or specific knowledge inside the organization, that's for other people's roles in the business for you to collate and curate as tools to create the holistic customer experience. All right, so maybe if you're not technical, you have your SC, your engineer on site, or you know who your domain specialists are inside your team, to bring them to speak about whatever their field of knowledge is, their depth. Don't know if you can hear the cops coming past. Not for me, unfortunately. So that's the whole point, right? And those resources are potentially less valuable than your resources and your skill set as the account manager, right? Account managers get all the glory, but they also get all the pain. It is leadership, right? It is account and solutioning leadership. It is relationship leadership. So you get all the highs and all the lows, all the praise and all the bullshit that comes in your portfolio with your customers, for better or for worse, right? And then as the concierge, to go back to that analogy, that's the concierge knows. The concierge knows, who the room service person is, the cleaners are, to go, if you need to get your room tidied earlier, let me just ask them, we'll sort that out for you, right? If you want to get great tickets to the cinema or to the theater, whatever it is, he knows a guy, right? And that's your role, is to pull in useful resources, valuable parts of the business at your disposal, and know when to bring them in and when to use them, right? Just like tools on a tool belt, we're trying to build this big ass tool belt for you to understand what to do and where to go in any given situation. And that's what's great about the concierge as well. They've often, through experience, seen and done everything for customers and are able to leverage previous experience to help curate and better the experience for next time and for next time and for next time, right? And refining that process along the way. And this is where it becomes extremely important to be that people person in tech, because this is where all the skills come, right? This is where you get to know everyone. This is where you've got to be a good networker and connect with people and resources and those members of your extended team that you might not necessarily interact with all the time, but they're part of your ecosystem. And, maintaining a good brand inside the organization and outside of it is, again, also extremely important, right? Since we're talking about brand, internal brand, let's talk about the importance of your brand, right? Your personal brand as an individual is more important than your company's brand, okay? So your company's brand, what the marketing machine does to get customers to your front door, is very important, yes, a given, but all of that can disappear, all that goodwill, all of that perception can be destroyed by your incompetence as an account manager. And even if customers just simply don't like you, they can just negate you in your entire existence and who you are and any opportunity for you to sell into that organization because of their perception of you, right? No matter how good the product is, you might be the industry leader by a country mile, but if the customer doesn't like dealing with you for whatever reason it is, it doesn't matter. It simply does not matter. They're going to find it elsewhere, or they're going to go around you maybe if they've got no other option. And that happens a lot as well. We talked around, it was in previous weeks, we talked about the importance of your partner ecosystem or having partners in your ecosystem and having those relationships and understanding what the relative warmth is. You could be completely bypassed as an account manager and they don't want to deal with you as the vendor because they don't care to know you, because again, that high turnover of account managers, the customer can't be bothered dealing with some new fuckface every 2 years. Pardon my French, but it's what they think. Because they've got a deep relationship with a partner or a reseller, right? So again, being able to gauge and understand where you are relative to a customer perception at all times, very important. So why, the importance around your personal brand is that customers have to invest a little bit of trust in you straight away. And the reason why they have to do that is because the company, your company, has bestowed a level of authority upon you with the title of account manager, right? It is your responsibility for you to look after your customer. Therefore, that exchange does not happen without them having to also step in and step in response to you engaging and go, okay, I have to trust this guy until you show yourself to be, incompetent and useless, or competent and you can build that relationship, right? So they're always going to be respected a little bit at first because you're the guy now. You're the guy that's representing the brand. And if they've got an existing relationship, with your organization. Maybe they are, have invested a lot of products or a lot of money into your products. Then it's very important to gauge where you are relationally between the company's brand and your brand, right? And what do I mean by that? In a lot of conversations I've had with customers in the past, when it goes really well, sometimes they'll hate dealing with my company. I had a lot of customers that did not like dealing with Telstra because of, the clusterfuck of processes and bullshit and, working in silos and all that sort of stuff. But they loved dealing with me. Why? Because I made all of that mess behind me simple, actionable, bite-sized pieces, updates. I'm sort of pulling the curtain back and going, just give me a sec, sir, and then going in the background and just corralling everyone together to get something sorted out. Right? And customers can see that because a lot of the times what would happen is they'd have this issue that was sitting there for yonks, for ages, and then I'd come in, clean it all, and those things would change really quickly and they go, this guy's pretty cool. Right? So a useful tool to gauge where the relative perception of where you are versus the company and how much extra brand equity and how much brand leverage you have is to, when you have your first meeting with your customer, an introductory meeting, when you get to know them, you ask simple, direct questions about their experience. You ask them, what have you liked about dealing with us? What haven't you liked with dealing with us? You would already have some information of what they're already using of your products and services. So you go, okay, how's X product going? And what can we do to improve the service that you've got? And our customers are always going to say price. Ha, 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 ha. Very funny. But what is also going to happen is during that feedback that they give you, if they go, yeah, I love Cisco's been great to me or Telstra's been great to me, great products, great services, always been looked after, great. Now that's how you've just inherited or have the opportunity to inherit that brand equity and put it to yourself and align it to yourself, right? And be positioned relative to the company's position. And if you do that right with competency and being able to continue on that goodwill by looking after the customer in the way they like being enjoyed, you don't have to do the hard work of building the trusted network, which is a lot of the work, right? Is the initial trust building element using the trust building formula, trust equals frequency plus familiarity to break into the trusted network. If they like you and they like the organization already, bang, you're in, right? And also that works on the inverse as well. Like I said before, customers can like dealing with you but hate dealing with the company because you're making light work of all the shit they had to deal with previously. And so understanding your relative position between the company and your personal brand is important. By default, you are always going to end up neutral with a little bit of trust, and it's yours to lose by not understanding the customer's needs properly, not looking after them properly, etc., etc. But you have a lot to gain if you, that's what we talked about before, are able to attach and associate yourself with the relative goodwill and the good perceptions of the company and how they've looked after them, okay? But you still have to prove that you can bridge that gap by looking after them and picking up where the last person, the last account team left off, okay? So why is that important? Because just like we talked about before, breaking through the trusted network, which is the majority of the work here, right? Is about the challenge of this organization. The main challenge of a people person in tech is to develop the perception of a trusted technology advisor. And if your company is already positioned as a strategic partner in the customer's organization, or they've had a great account manager beforehand that was trustworthy and maybe they've done you a favor by introducing you or whatnot, you are able to not have to start this bullshit again of trying to get their trust, etc. That is compounded, accelerated, or even bypassed entirely. Likewise, why your personal brand is extremely important is what we talked about before, the halo effect, right? Your perception, a customer's perception of you also then reflects to the organization, your organization behind you as a whole, right? It refracts. And so if they think you stink, then they're going to think anyone that you introduce into the conversation also stinks, right? But what if, for example, if they really like the company that you work for and you stink, they might give you a little bit more patience because they go, well, what's wrong with this guy? The last team we dealt with was great. So we know there's good operators inside the company. Where are they? And so there's a little leverage there. There's an opportunity for, your team members to sort of pick up the slack of the perception of the brand, right? Likewise, that halo effect we talked about in a previous lesson, where you by association get to refract and sort of rebound your goodwill of who you are onto different elements inside the business. That is also, a very useful tool, because once you're in the trusted network, you are able to introduce more products, more solutions, increase that share of wallet without the effort of being kept at arm's length or having to go through the process of being trusted again, right? So it makes expanding the share of wallet and your opportunity to sell more products, extremely efficient. So, for example, let's do the inverse of what we talked about before. The customer hates your organization, but they really like you. So if you go, Mr. Customer, let me introduce you to this person in the business. He is, like me, he's the data center specialist. You've got a problem with your servers, or you want to look at servers. Here's my data center specialist. He's a good guy. He's one of the good ones. Work with him in plenty of deals. Great operator. You'll be fine. That little couple of sentences of bigging him up, of puffing them up a little bit, is really important, and it's very valuable, because then you have used the halo effect of your personal brand to refract and build and pull that person into the trusted network with you, right? To go, hey, he's one of my guys, good operator, let's just chat with him, right? Then by association, you've increased the overall brand and the overall access to that for that guy to come in, work with you as a team to solve a solution, sell a product, right? So that's why it's very, very important to work in synchronization with the company brand where you can, if they've got goodwill, as if you're a new account manager in particular, and you need to understand the lay of the land and understanding the customer's relative positioning and the perception of your organization. Very important, okay? So that's how you work with the brand. Now, one of the sneakier ways, the more useful tools, personal tools that you as an individual have, is when you go against the company brand, right? And how this works is that it creates an us versus them mentality, right? You're sort of on the customer side of things, right? So, for example, if you've got a situation where you've got a servicing issue or a billing issue, and there's a team that's in the back end of the business, and they're the ones screwing up, right? Then, and by association, if they're screwing up in the back end, unfortunately, that reflects on you and your competency in the front end, right? Whether you like it or not. And this happened to me so many times in my time at Telstra, is where complex billing issues would be outsourced to people that didn't have a goddamn clue, and they would take forever, they wouldn't understand, they wouldn't communicate, and then, again, the relative perception of the brand goes down with these shitty little engagements. So, what can you do to save face? Is that you might have to disconnect from the company brand a little bit and be like, look, I know what's going on here. These guys don't know what the fuck is going on at the moment. And I'm telling them what to do, but they just don't get it, right? And that's a way to salvage your personal brand against a company brand, which again, it's more important. It's really important because, for example, to rebuild that trust, if something's gone wrong in the back end, what a servicing issue has gone wrong, if you are able to salvage your personal relationship, you can leverage that again for them to buy it from you, right? They're buying from you now. Not so much Telstra, not so much Cisco, not so much the other organization. They're buying from you because they trust that you will deliver them or take them to where they need to go and getting the solution done for them right. Okay? They go, all right, it's a bit of a sausage factory back there, but this guy, he's looking after me. I trust him. I know he'll look after me. Let's reinvest. And that has been a saving grace. That was a saving grace for me many times at my time at Telstra because I was highly competent and knew what was going on and what needed to be fixed to the most degree, whilst people in the back end who are usually just, outsourced to India or whatever it is, they were just following a process sheet and really didn't understand what the hell was going on. And it's not really just a Telstra problem. Every major tech organization has stuff outsourced to India, to Wipro, to, Tata, all of these Indian-based outsourcing services where a lot of the back end is just a bunch of low-skilled IT people following process maps that are probably out of date or they don't really comprehend them properly. I'm not trying to be racist, not trying to be anything like that. I'm just giving you some goddamn honest truth. Another way that the personal brand is important and when you can use it to decouple from the company brand is, being able to take the sales hat off, right? This is a good way to build genuine trust with your customers, right? Because again, the brand works in two ways. The personal brand, the company brand, they're always intertwined, but there is always the opportunity to take the mask off, take the hat off, right? Particularly if you've done a great deal for a customer and they're not really getting it, that you've done them a real big favor by giving them a good deal. The ability to take the sales hat off, right? Even though you are largely operating ideally without the sales hat on, you've got that solution focus, you've got that customer experience focus, you've got that satisfaction focus. Taking that sales hat off and, giving them the back end tour, or what I like to say, open the kimono, or, pulling back the curtain to see how things are really done, that is valuable to your customer relationships, right? Is that honesty, that directness, that removing the facade, because again, no matter what, all day, every day, societally, we all have these masks on. We all, the professionalism, well, not professionalism, but, the politeness or, the lack of honesty, and we withhold things. I know you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Just the bullshit we put up with every day, the politeness, the small talk, all that sort of shit that we're getting a little bit sick of, or at least I am anyway. The strength and the ability to just push that to the side and go, hey man, being real here with you, you're getting a great fucking deal, right? I can't do any better on this price. This is it. Because everyone expects the game. All customers expect the dance, the negotiation dance, the bullshit dance that they have to do to make sure that they're getting the best bang for buck, or at least not being fucked over financially in the process and, being charged overs. Because unfortunately, that is the perception and the stereotype that we have to face as salespeople, is that we are charging through the roof because we can and we just want to make commissions and fuck the customer off. Right? And that is not my agenda, never has been, never will be, and I never teach anything like that, right? But again, that's what we have to fight. So if we can break that perception by being honest, personable, give them a little something that they're not supposed to see or not supposed to hear about. Here's a little bit something extra, right? Here's that quick tip, something that's elusive. Again, just like the concierge, right? The concierge knows, hey, there's a great restaurant here and here, but here's where the locals go. You might really like this. You like Italian, you'll fucking love this Italian place. Go there. That little extra, hey, just for you, that goes a long way, right? That shows customers that you're invested in their goodwill, their well-being, are looking to play win-win, right? And that just builds that relationship, and it builds that personal brand as well. Is that you're not just there to be a company man and to be a peon of the organization. You're really there to help them, right? And their personal and professional motivations, what we talked about before. So, how do you build this? How do you build your personal brand, right? Most people, particularly who are new to tech sales or are, in people skills, they don't understand the importance of brand. Only really good marketers or people that are marketers at heart really understand the power of the brand, right? People inherently understand that they've got a brand to protect if they're smart, all right, and they control their perceptions and how they're perceived. Politicians are great at this. Salespeople are good at this. Most of that branding for salespeople generally actually comes into the internal brand as opposed to the external brand. So what they are perceived as inside the business, because they use that leverage to gain positions, more positions of power, leadership roles, better jobs, etc., etc. But again, still important on both sides of the fence, but a different set of tools, a different set of perceptions to play with. So brand building comes part and parcel with the activities of perception, right? Brand is entirely perception, right? Everything, like we talked about before, is about the perception of who you are and the perception of your brand to others. Now, regardless of how useful or swish or fantastic the technology is, again, if it's poorly packaged, poorly communicated of its value, it doesn't mean shit. So, because brand is built on perception, all of the perceptive tools that we've talked about in previous episodes all contribute to building your brand. So again, we're trying to build the perception of the trusted technology advisor. The best way to do that is to leverage the trust formula with the customer. Again, trust equals frequency plus familiarity. Showing up often, frequency, with good value, familiarity, association that you are competent, you are personable, trustworthy, useful. That all comes in the way that you act and operate and engage with your customers. All right. Creating the right to sell is also built on that competence and that closeness to the customer. Again, leveraging that formula over and over again. And what else was I going to talk about here? Building the brand, trust formula, perception is reality. I think the best way servicing is selling is important in there as well. So, servicing and selling. Here we go. This is why we do drafts, people. The account concierge and that perception of the account concierge and building that up initially, no problem too big. Everything's a breeze. Let me sort that out for you. That all lends itself into servicing is selling, a concept we talked about last week, right? Because you are the easygoing, know how to get it done guy. And being as the concierge, curating that experience, minimizing that friction in the experience, that all demonstrates and builds competency, trust, right? That is where servicing is important, right? Because the concierge, like an account manager, is built into the cost of the transactions. Customers only get account managers when they spend a certain amount with their organization because they want to ensure that their experience is good, so they keep investing in the customer, and the customer keeps investing in them, rather. So, just like the concierge is free. You don't pay for the concierge, just like you don't pay for the account manager. So they're a free, in air quotes, free resource that adds to the experience, right? By servicing you, really, really well so you come back or at least have a great association. So next time around, this is top of mind by creating that good servicing experience without any cost to the customer, right? They are a freebie that helps create cool, fun, useful experiences for the customer in the sales process, in the overall relationship with the customer, and that compounds in value over time, right? Because like we said, if your concierge, if your servicing skills can break into that trusted network, you're in a powerful position, you are well positioned, then the exchange of goods and services and money freely flows, okay? And that can be proven through servicing. Servicing is selling. And that's the problem, is that a lot of account managers don't understand, is that servicing the customer is one of their primary responsibilities. It is not to sell to the customer. Right? It is, but it's actually third, right? It is get to know them extremely well if you can, look after them, service them, make sure they've got a great experience, and that lays the groundwork for you to then sell, right? Creating the right to sell through servicing is selling. Yes, that's how it works. So compounding those two concepts together, all right? You want to build the right to sell? Service well, because servicing is selling without the sale, without the exchange. You are giving, right? If you're looking after the customer and you are giving good value by looking after them, you are building that price versus value seesaw we talked about in previous episodes. You're increasing relative value, which is intangible but still highly valuable to the customer over the price of your product. In fact, if you look after a customer really well, it decreases not just the relative value, but it actually attracts a premium, right? Just like you pay for fucking first class service or business class on the same amount of space that you do in an airplane, right? What do you get? You get better service. That attracts a premium. Luxury brands, they look after you. You get the free coffee. You get, you can sit down and relax. Or, some places like, the fancy shops, they've got engraving services or, a concierge of their own or whatever it is, right? Anything they can do to add to your experience that makes the exchange of goods and services for money easier, okay? So this understanding of account management and servicing the customer is not recognized or not utilized enough by most account managers. They think they're there to sell. No, that you are there to roll out the red carpet and minimize the friction for the selling to occur. You are there to do most of the pre-work in selling. And how can you do that? If you're not out there selling to a customer, how can you do that? How can you service a customer well? Well, one of the most underrated skills and something that I want to iterate and hammer in to new account managers is to master your internal systems, right? Keep your shit clean. What do I mean by this? To make the experience as frictionless as possible, you need to understand the tools and the systems that integrate with a customer's experience and understand how they affect the experience and how you can leverage them to create the experience that you need for the customer to happen, right? So what does this mean? So usually most bugbears, particularly in my time at Telstra with customers, is about billing, right? Unless you're selling a CapEx solution, so it's just one and done, you pretty much, you're sorted, right? But any of the touch points, right? Holistic touch points that customers have with your organization, with your brand, you have a degree of responsibility for. So, Telstra would have the bill, so many products, so many billing intricacies, complex as shit. Bill would be half a ream of paper, sometimes a full ream of paper for customers. Fucking insane that we would just ship out reams of paper for bills. But it is what it is. However, those touch points, being able to manage a bill properly, if they've got, making sure they've got access to assurance platforms. So if you're selling a technology solution that has a degree of maintenance to it or is software based, do they have access to the tools? Do they know how are they enabled on those platforms and those tools to use them to self-serve? Is your organization meeting the SLAs of the services that's being delivered to them, right? All of these become your responsibility. And therefore, if you have means to leverage them and twist and manipulate them to your advantage to create a good customer experience, that is one of the most understated ways to create the right to sell, and is, in my experience, by far the best way to create the right to sell, is to, again, get that red carpet experience going, get that seamless, frictionless experience by knowing how these tools that customers are interacted by or impacted by affect them and how you can negate them or leverage them to your best outcomes, right? So I'll give you an example. Customers would complain about this big, thick paper bill all the time. So what I would do, I would enable them onto a billing platform called T-Analysts, where they would get their bills delivered by email, and I would explain what their products are and give them access on how to generate automated reports that are done on Excel that they can ship and integrate into their account management platform, their accounting platforms like Xero or whatnot. So then customers can integrate cost centers and allocate costs to different cost centers in their business, and they would understand what each product means because they could put their own little label next to the product, because they don't understand, an accountant doesn't understand what a 100 megabit internet link is, right? So they just, or 100 meg TID or whatever it was called, they would just know internet connection for X site, right? And they go, oh, okay, so X site goes to X cost center. So by being able to leverage and make that experience simpler for not just the IT manager, but the finance person, all of the touch points that are impacted by what your products and solutions does, that creates goodwill. That creates leverage. That creates, again, that value equation that we're trying to pull in every single day. So getting your internal systems right is by far the most important, right? Because I've seen many relationships fall south with delivery and expectations not being met, or the experience of when they actually get the product versus the dream that was sold completely disconnecting. And a lot of that stuff can be negated or at least, minimized with A, setting the right expectations to begin with, and then B, understanding the systems and the risks involved and getting in the way of it before it impacts the customer or can add to it as well. Excuse me. There's this analogy that I'm going to turn into content about the account management and the account concierge that I think about a lot. Some of you might know the sport of curling. I think it's a Canadian-based sport. It's done on ice, right? You might see it in the Olympics or whatnot. But how curling works is it's essentially like a three-man team. And it's essentially like lawn bowls, but over ice. And so what they do is one person will slide this almost like a slightly flattened bowling ball with a handle over the ice. And the idea is to slide to a point where it hits a target, right, down the line. And there's two other team members who have a brush, right? They've got a broom in each of them. And what they do is that as the ball is sliding down the pitch or whatever it is, the ice, they get a brush. And what they do is they scrub. They scrub the pathway of the ball or the curl. I don't know what it is, but they scrub the ball or the path of that ball to either get rid of debris or to even slow down and increase the friction of the sliding of the ice to slow the curling ball down, right? So they are, again, customizing and curating the ice ahead of time in anticipation of reaching the target. And that is basically that action there of scrubbing, right? The customer is the ball and you are the scrubbing brush. And the ball is trying to get to your solution, your sale. So you need to be scrubbing ahead of time, knowing where the rough patches are, knowing where to gloss over to minimize those seams and that friction as much as possible. And as a concierge, as someone that masters and has in-depth understanding of the customer's experience and can pull from other experiences that similar customers have had, or learning from mistakes of delivery or promises not being made or not realizing a solution properly, learning from those mistakes, you should be leveraging those mistakes, learning what not to do in engagements, and then leveraging them to your best advantage with every customer engagement, therefore improving the customer experience with every new customer you've got. All right, that's how you learn and you grow in this business. Yes, it is useful to become a better salesperson, and absolutely you should and will do that. But servicing a customer as an account manager, as the people person in tech, minimizing that friction between A to B from pre-sale to sale is an extremely underutilized but very, very powerful tool in relationship building and in customer relationship management in general. And that alone has been one of my key secret sources to success. Right? I've had multiple case studies, 2 case studies with customers that had poor relationships with Telstra that I transformed into advocates and sold them millions of dollars of solutions because I was the concierge. I cleaned up the experience. I got the right people involved when they needed to be, right, to curate that experience. And then I understood them really well, which led them to trusting me, trusting in my brand, not Telstra's brand, my brand, and leveraging my trust, using the halo effect to then expand the share of wallet into solutions they might not have bought from us because I looked after them and they trusted me, right? That is the power of this stuff. My best work has been done as an account concierge, as cleaning up accounts, getting to know customers, displaying competency, breaking into those trusted networks, and then expanding their perception of what this organization, my company, could do for them and to buy more off me. And again, is it difficult? Yes. It's difficult, right, to service initially, but it gets easier. And then just like that polished fucking ice that you've got with the brush, you get better at brushing the ice, right? You anticipate ahead of time what customers are going to be frustrated by, and you can just take those out before they even recognize it, before it becomes a speed bump, right? So it gets annoying now to, sort of learn through trial by fire of seeing mistakes or being involved in a lot of mistakes in customer relationships, which is what I did for 2 years, really, 18 months, is that I was in servicing, I wasn't in direct sales when I got into Telstra. My first role inside B2B sales was not an account manager, it was an account specialist. What the account specialist was there to do was to deal with the complex billing issues and the bullshit that came from delivering a complex multi-product solution, right? Because, you'd sell a data network that would have, for big customers, 30 to 40 sites. And each of them have got a price, each of them have to make sure that the price lines up with the contract. You're not just selling a network, you're selling telephony on top of that. They've also got mobiles, and they've also got, other products that need to make sure that they're delivered as promised and as quoted. And because Telstra's systems were so old and shitty and disconnected, and they weren't built to manage these sorts of technologies and the billing intricacies in one platform, people like me had to be created to sort all that shit out because the account managers were too busy selling, right? That's what they were supposed to be doing, is selling. But what they didn't realize, or at least the good ones realized, is that most of the selling is done in the account servicing, making sure that their bill is clean, that the complex is simple, and because that minimizing that complexity is, again, breaking the perception of what Telstra was to a lot of customers. Oh, you can't fucking deal with them. All their call centers in the Philippines, they're just fucking useless. They don't know what the fuck's going on. Most of that is verbatim in many of my years at Telstra. Okay? So, yes, account management there, understated, is servicing is selling, is that mastering your systems, leveraging your brand versus the company brand, and knowing how to play with these elements to curate that experience. You are creating and curating experiences for customers to make it easy for them to buy off you, right? Easy and seamless. Going back to, to wrap this up, mastering your systems, the 4 key systems that I've got here that you should be mastering over time is your internal tools and your internal systems, right? Whatever that might be, particularly ones that have finance associated with it or money, right? So if you are able to, if you can leverage a platform, an application that you've got in the business that provides the price of your product, which, changes the discounting levels you can provide, and you know how to leverage that to get a competitive deal, master that shit, right? And we'll talk about why that's useful in other parts of the course. The second system that you should be mastering is your CRM or your note-taking system. What do you know about customers at a glance? Where is your intellectual property about what you know about this customer? And I will tell you from experience that the CRMs that are provided by organizations are not useful day to day, right? You are better off, and that's why I'm providing this in the course, when you buy the Tech Sales Academy course, is that to create your own CRM of intellectual property, because the data that's collected in CRMs is not for you as the salesperson to help service the customer. It's to collect qualitative data for business analysts and operations people to understand the health of the business. So they're not conveniently placed for you to understand what a customer has, right? Particularly if you're in an organization that has multiple, products, lots of product silos, right? If you're like someone like, for me, I've worked at Telstra and Cisco who sell 4 different architectures, right? So those 4 different architectures, networking, security, data center, and collaboration, are probably built on different product stacks, on different solution stacks, and different technology stacks, and then the finances of that have to somehow integrate, right? So in most organizations, particularly in vendor land, disparate data is extremely common. So even something like Salesforce, which is supposed to be this all-in-one solution, is not a great CRM. It is a great overlay for legacy applications to integrate their data feeds into a singular platform, right? That's what it's really there for. And you'll find in organizations that use Salesforce that forecasting is still a fucking nightmare to deal with every single day. So much so that there are plenty of other companies that have built solutions on top of Salesforce to fix the problem of forecasting effectively, such as Scratchpad and other sorts of things, okay? So being, having a place where you have intimate customer information at a glance. I like to use OneNote because it's usually integrated with your email. Most organizations live on Microsoft's Outlook platform. As such, you'll get OneNote as a note-taking thing. Again, I will create templates in the actual course itself of how to structure your data to have it all at a glance for you. Even something as simple as using it on, I create mini CRMs on Excel, using cell references and data. Not that I use it for any calculations, but just to literally just have information is in a matrix. But we'll talk about that another time. The third system is your sales and pipeline management system. Now, what does that mean? That's your system and your process for creating, maintaining, and closing pipeline, right? So understanding your sales process, where a customer is relative to the sales process in the funnel, and then what are you doing to fill a funnel up with new opportunities. How are you nurturing your opportunities into a close? What's your close ratio like? How many deals are you actually closing? Are you successful, etc. So understanding how you manage that day to day with activity. And then the fourth areas of systems to master is your productivity systems, right? Collaboration tools, databases, the basics, Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, Outlook, right? How are you effectively collating and managing data? How are you effectively keeping that data useful in one place, right? Most people don't even fucking know that your iPhone has a file system like Windows, but you never use it. You just think of it as, all my files go into, you just don't think of it for files. You think of it for photos and you just go into your camera roll and that's it. But you actually have a file system that is very similar, if not the exact same, as Windows or Mac, and you could potentially, using iCloud, have copies of your data on your mobile. So if you've got a presentation or you've got some information or a spreadsheet that you want to send while you're on the run, it's useful to have access, you'd be able to access these things and know how to share them with other people whilst you're on the run, on the field, whatever it is. That's actually underutilized a fair bit. Databases, again, where are you keeping your information? How is this accessible to you is really the aspect there. Is how effectively, because you are a knowledge worker, right? Your commodity is information. So how effective are you at sharing or giving information quickly and readily? Also a potentially useful point, right? Speed of information. We live in an information-based society. The specialized knowledge that you contain, which makes you valuable, how can you easily give that to others without having to go, to a laptop, or maybe you're on the run, that sort of stuff. So those are the 4 key systems. In the course, we'll break into that in a little bit more depth. That's kind of more difficult though, because again, depending on where you are, the systems will vary. But number 1, internal systems, very, very important. And then again, note-taking in CRM, that specific intellectual property, that's very important too, because what will happen is, and this happens with every organization, when you leave no one knows your customer more than you. No one knows the customer better than you as the account manager. So that intellectual property isn't often kept anywhere. It's usually kept in your head. And when you leave a company, that goes with you. And companies that's one of the biggest losses of resource value besides you as an employee when you leave an organization, is that the intellectual property, the knowledge, the relationship, the warmth that you've built with that customer disappears with you. Not entirely, but a fair chunk of it, right? Particularly when I left and I got made redundant from Telstra 2 years ago, I had 3 or 4 customers, probably a couple more, that I was intimate with, and I own those relationships, and they wouldn't really speak to anyone without me being involved and me being that arbiter and going, hey, creating that warmth for the other guy, for the other resources to go, is this guy good to deal with? I'd be like, yes, absolutely. To a point where when I left and I got made redundant, I left the important things behind to understand about the customer for the customer's sake, but I didn't really care about my intellectual property because I was like, fuck this, I got made redundant, fuck you. And then I just, that left a vacuum because no one really understood what was going on except for me. And that left a big hole in Telstra's dealings with the customer because they didn't understand it because I did. So, is that valuable? Yes, it is. It's extremely valuable because then they've got to build that relationship again somehow. And even better so, if you're a great account manager and you fuck off and they've got some new guy in, they will compare you, just like a new boyfriend or a new girlfriend. They'll compare you to the last one. They'll be like, this guy fucking sucks in comparison, which I have had that feedback in the past, which is, nice. It's good for the ego. Anyway, that's the episode. That's it for this week. I think we've pretty much clocked the hour there. Account Management 101, servicing is selling, understanding your personal brand, understanding your systems, right? And leveraging that halo effect to minimize the hard work that's required into breaking into the trusted network of your customer. All useful stuff. That's it for this week. Next week, we'll look at some more salesy things, maybe some business acumen. Haven't really decided yet. If you love what I'm doing here, folks, please let me know what's good, what's not. Would love any and all feedback. Right? This is a draft. If you've got any questions, anything that I can highlight or add more depth to, please reach out. Anything bad, please, again, just give me any and all feedback. I want to hear it. This is about creating a fantastic product for you as the end user, as the listener. If you like what I'm doing here, www.techsales.academy, you can sign up now for the pre-launch special. $498 for lifetime access to the course. It's not ready yet, but you're getting a nice chunk of it here for free. And there'll be plenty more resources, videos. It'll be sharpened, it'll be polished, it'll be beautiful, right? The best $498 that you could invest in to build your tech sales career. That is my promise to you, okay? So www.techsales.academy, full course should be out, or not the full course. First parts of the course will be out end of October based on my timelines. See how we go. If you're on the YouTubes, do us a favor, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Besides that, thank you very much for your time and attention, bingers. I've been Jamil Raymond. See you next week. Ciao for now.